Chairman Morris.
Here.
Commissioner Blue.
Present.
Commissioner Cotton.
Here.
Commissioner Hesner. Commissioner Heidner.
Here.
Commissioner Mulcron.
Here.
Commissioner Gorog.
Here.
Okay, we have a quorum. This evening, we do not have a public hearing. We have a development review for the Hawthorne District 73 kindergarten expansion. Okay, so who's going to speak?
Hello, my name is Nick Brown, Superintendent for Hawthorne District 73, and we're here to present some concept drawings and some ideas for you to review. Just a quick overview for Hawthorne District 73. This is my 6th year there. 6 years ago, we had 3,986 students, and now we're around 4,400. We're growing. People like coming to Vernon Hills. It's a great place to be. We used to grow about 50 students a year historically, but the last couple of years we've grown about 120 students for the last 3 or 4 years in a row, and that's addition to what we have. We are full. Our buildings are at capacity. We have at Middle School North, we have PE in the cafeteria during lunch. We have classrooms that are in portables at Elementary South, and we have some programs that are displaced, like art on a cart, things of that sort. So we've been reviewing this for several years. We've come up with an educational facilities master plan the board approved. It's a 10-year facilities plan. Part of that is this kindergarten expansion onto the Sullivan Center in partnership with the Park District. I'm working with the library in the village on that to make that about. So you're going to see some diagrams and be able to answer some questions for you on what that is. It is going to, we have roughly 450 students per grade level. So you have 450 students in kindergarten. The last 3 years, we've averaged about 435. We still have folks that sometimes will keep students and send them to a private kindergarten, or they want half day and they do something like that. 75 students attend our School of Dual Language. A School of Dual Language is a program that starts at kindergarten through 5th grade, and the goal is for students to be bilingual, biliterate, and bicultural when they leave. 50% of the students are native Spanish speaking, 50% of the students are native English speaking. So if you were to take 450 and take out the 75, that leaves how many students we'd have available to be into the kindergarten center. So we anticipate it would be less than 400 for several years, and if the population grows, it might get into the 400, 425 range over somewhere 7 to 10 year period of time. The building does have multiple classrooms. There are actually 16 design classrooms. You'll see this is a design, we call them petals. They're 4 squares. It's a 2-story building, 4 squares on top of each other, 4 classrooms in each one of the petals, 16 classrooms. And then there's some maker spaces that could be converted into classrooms as needed. And in the center, there are also instructional spaces that could be turned into classrooms as needed. So it can go from 16 to 22 classrooms if needed without any major renovations or any changes of that sort. We don't think we'd have to go through there. We run a 25-to-1 ratio in our planning for enrollment. So if you thought of 25 students per 1 teacher times 10 teachers, it gives you a number of how many students we expect. So it'd be 250. If you went to 20 teachers, it'd be 500. But that's the ratio we use, and we'd like to try to keep that below that at the primary grades. Currently, off of our enrollment and our expected enrollment, with the number of teachers we have, we anticipate 22 to 1 might be the actual range that would be in. It's a very dynamic, exciting design. We have some great professionals here to help answer questions. So just want to give you a quick background of how we got to this point. And all of our schools, I'm sure you're aware, but all of our schools are on a campus feeling, split by 60. We have the North Campus that has a middle school and several elementaries, and the South Campus has a middle school and several elementaries, but they're all probably within a mile of each other. So this project keeps everything still on the same campus and keeps that same campus feel. So that helps us with transportation and busing and things of that sort for folks. So I will turn it over to the gentleman behind me, and then they can answer questions, or they'll go through a brief presentation and answer questions as well. Thank you.
Hello, I'm Don Dixon with Gaywalt Hamilton Associates, and we're the civil engineers and surveyors of record for the project. I'm going to forward this to our site plan. I understand that you should be able to see the little hand as it moves around. So basically, just a little bit about the positioning of the building. The building's positioned on the north side of the existing Sullivan Center, south of the library, and just to the west of Victory Center. This property was a little bit of a challenge as far as where the building needed to be sited in order to get circulation and access that would work for the property. So after many meetings with the school district, library, village, all of the different stakeholders, park, we went through several different renditions of how we were going to get buses in here and how we were going to get the parents in here, and also address some of the village's concerns about not adding additional traffic impact to Aspen Drive. So what you see before you is probably about the 8th or 9th version of site plans that we've gone through, just moving components around. So what we have with the building situated here, the primary access for buses would be, buses would turn off of Aspen into this drive, which is located across from Middle South. They would come in during the morning drop-offs. The buses will pull up to the curbside. They'll drop curbside, and it'll just be whatever order the buses come in. They pull as far to the east as possible, they drop off. There's sufficient stacking in the morning for them to make that maneuver, unload the kids, and then when they exit, they will exit on Phillip Road Extended. You can see where we are proposing to connect Phillip from this northern point north of Victory Center, coming down to the west and to the south, and making connection down in front of the school. So buses, as they exit, they would head north on Phillip Extended and then continue on Phillip and exit out to the east. For afternoon drop pickups, one of the things that the school was very concerned about was that the buses occupy the same position every day so that the kids get used to going to a bus in a particular location. So the stacking of the buses becomes a little bit more problematic. At that point, we can't just stack buses one behind each other because we don't know what order they're going to come in every day. So we provide enough room for 3 buses along the curb line to park parallel, and we give the spacing in there sufficient that if a bus is occupying this position and another bus comes later and needs to get in front of him, there's sufficient room for him to pull in front, park curbside without having to do any type of backup maneuvers. So using that, we're able to park 3 buses along curbside, and then we have up to 7 diagonal parking spaces up to the north, so that we have their ultimate count of 10 buses whenever this hits the full demand capacity of the building. Again, in the afternoon, buses would be positioned, waiting for the kids to come out the door. As they exit, these buses, curbside, would pull straight forward and go north on Phillip. The buses parked diagonal would continue out to the west, to the east, and again head north on Phillip to exit the facility. So that's the circulation for the buses. For the parent drop-offs, the parents will only access the school from Phillip Road. So mornings, they will come in on the north side of Victory Center, turn down Phillip Extended. This is a 2-way drive. They'll go past the bus stop, come to this turnaround area, and in here, I'm going to go to the next plan because I think this will help a little bit more. It's a little bit enlarged. So as the parents are coming down through here, we've got sidewalk all along this, basically a cul-de-sac, which allows for stacking and queuing of parents to drop their kids off curbside with the passenger door, so that the kids can get out on the passenger door, go right onto the sidewalk and enter into the school. Once they've been dropped off, the parents will circulate back around and head north. There is a connection between the cul-de-sac and the Sullivan Center, but this will be controlled by gates that can be closed or shut. Typically, they'll remain closed so that nobody would be allowed to access to the south. We take them on this circular movement and get them back out north. However, if Sullivan Center has some functions and they need that additional relief for traffic, the gates here can be opened, the gates up here can be open, and during those special events, this road can serve as a relief road and keep some of the traffic off of Aspen Drive. We have sufficient queuing for 32 passenger vehicles before anybody would get out and impact the existing drive at the northwest corner of Victory Center. So there's quite a bit of stacking that's allowed in here before you would ever back up into this area. As far as parking goes, I know you have the staff report in front of you, which lists out all the number of spaces which are available with some shared parking. 76 spaces are required. 45 spaces are going to be provided by the Park District under a shared parking agreement. There are 4 spaces in this turnaround area. We've provided this for handicap parking, as well as the parents who need to come during non-drop-off hours. If you have to bring your kid in a little bit later and you have to walk in with them, there's parking spaces there for the parents to do that, or if they have to pick a child up before the regular dismissal time. So 4 spaces there. So according to the report, there's a 19-space deficit that currently exists. However, you'll see in the site plan that there is a expansion of the existing library parking lot that's proposed to the east of the recently created parking lot and just south of the library building. The site plan that the overall site plan showed that as being 35 spaces. As we got through and started doing some grading in here, we had to reduce that down to 32 spaces so that we could get this green space in here without having back-to-back curbs and trying to make up grade differences in there. So with that 33 stall parking expansion there, that would take care of any deficit in parking that shows up on the staff report. There are some existing wetlands. I'm going to go back a couple of exhibits for you. So there's an existing wetland, which is kind of here where this grouping of trees is. Now, based upon the improvements that are going to be needed, there's really not going to be any way to save these wetlands, and they're not high-quality wetlands. It's just one of these pocketed areas of wetlands that happen to exist after development takes place. What we're proposing to do is purchase wetlands at a wetland bank. If you're familiar with those, basically it's a development that a private developer works to enhance an existing wetland and enlarge it to actually provide a wetland which is a more functional and higher quality wetland than anything that we could try to do mitigating this on site. So based on, the urban infill nature of trying to work here, it really, I believe, works out to the best benefit to just get rid of the entire wetland, take care of that on an off-site wetland bank, and that opens up this entire property for any type of development without having to worry about impacts to that wetland. We are looking into purchasing the credits. There are some banks that are just on the cusp of opening up. They're in the final stages of getting some paperwork done, and we're currently working with Lake County SMC to come back and do their preliminary jurisdictional determination on this so we can start finalizing that process. The next component here is stormwater detention. The development is going to obviously increase the amount of impervious or hard surface area that we have on the site. This white area that you see to the east of the development is an existing stormwater vault that was constructed with the Victory Center project. There was 7.51 acres of impervious area set aside for the detention vault at the time that this was constructed. With the current project that we have in front of you and all of the new impervious area that we're we're proposing, which also includes the addition to the future expansion of the library, and also this addition, if you can see this area in here, which is a proposed future expansion of the kindergarten. So taking both of those into account, we come in at 7.16 acres, but the real number is that leaves us 0.35 acres under the threshold that would require detention. So we can make all of the improvements, and all of our stormwater will work within that existing vault without having to do any on-site improvements or any type of on-site detention work. That includes the extension of Phillip Road here. As far as utilities go, obviously, there's utilities out here that's currently serving the Sullivan Center. We have sewer and water which come off of Aspen Drive. They will continue to service the site, perhaps with new connections there. Stormwater will connect along the east side of the property to an existing storm line that discharges into this vault we were talking about. And then gas and electric will come off of Aspen. I know that was pretty quick and hit a lot of information there, but I think that's a pretty good overview of the site components.
Before you leave, with regard to the stormwater, you were very careful to describe what is being added as impervious, but you didn't add the roads, the roadways, or that additional parking lot expansion. If you add those, is there enough water storage left?
No, that does include those. That includes all of the hard surface improvements that you see here. So let's go. So everything that you see in the gray here, which is the added asphalt, is included in that. And the yellow portion to the north, which is our building, is included in that. It also includes the future expansion here and the future expansion here. So that number takes all of this into account.
I have a quick question about the stormwater vault. You said you're going to use the vault at the Victory Center. Do you have, how do you do that? How do you legally use their vault?
That was already agreed to when the Victory Center created the vault or constructed it. It was taking into account tributary area, which included the entire library site, the village-owned property, and the Sullivan Center. So at that point in time, the village and, the people here, your engineers, your planners and all that, had the foresight to go ahead and plan to have this in place so that when this future development that's occurring now came to be, we were already taking care of that.
Okay.
Well, if that's it, I'll turn it over to the interesting folks and talk about the building a little bit.
I'll just provide a brief point of information because I know there's kind of discussion about the library and the library expansion. The library has not approached the village directly in the terms of their timeline for when they'll start their process. But what they have said to me is that they do plan on moving pretty quickly on that. They've received approval to move forward on that from their library board, is my understanding, and that their goal is essentially to do their construction concurrently with the kindergarten center. That would require also a separate public hearing in front of Planning and Zoning Commission members. We're not syncing that up with the kindergarten center specifically because we do want to keep them as separate processes that as we move forward along. But just as a point of information, just want to make sure that was.
So Joe, what approval does this need from us? Or is this an as of right?
And so as it relates to the kindergarten center, this is an amendment to, so the Sullivan Center is within the conservation zone district where a community center is considered a special use. They're expanding the community center to include this addition, and so it's an amendment to the special use permit.
Is it a community center?
Yes, because it'll be owned by the park district.
Yeah, but that's not its use. Is it a community center?
Well, is it a community center? That's how we've classified it, because the overall use is still the Sullivan Center, which has been classified as such, and this is more of an accessory use to the overall use of the property.
So
The Sullivan Center has a special use permit,
Yes,
so that means this would need approval of the special use permit,
correct.
including the portion that it is not injurious to the surrounding area, which the
Correct.
road clearly is. Just pointing that out. So, I mean, we haven't even gotten to the building yet. The road is going to be, unless the board's already approved the road.
No,
I mean,
no,
you're putting a huge amount of traffic in front of a facility that was an issue when we built it, and it was a dead-end road with just having Famous Dave's there. So anyway, I know don't want to talk about the road, and that will be a topic probably for later on, but that will be an issue, I think.
And,
Hey,
go ahead.
go, you go. I agree. I mean, I didn't want to get into all of it right now, but I know we're calling this West Phillip Road, but it's essentially a parking lot. And it narrows. I mean, visually you can see it narrows by 10, 15 feet. So you're asking to have 400 plus cars twice a day drive through a parking lot, and then buses. And then if you have a function at school at night, then they'll be driving on that road as well, and there's really nowhere for them to park. You know, I have a son at Middle South, and when that school parking lot fills up, they use the library parking lot and the Sullivan Center. So I'm not sure where you're parking all these parents if you have 400 kindergarten parents.
Parking them for functions or for drop-offs?
Both of it. And in the morning at Middle South, there's a good 100 cars all backed up all the way past Elementary South just to get to Middle South.
We've estimated, based on information that the school has, that we would anticipate 35 cars.
35 for 400 kids.
Well, there's also 8 buses that are coming in there as well.
I mean, have you been out there in the morning to see how many parents don't, drive their kid to school?
I have,
There's a lot more than 35.
Well, wait, especially when it's a kindergarten age. I mean, I would think that parents would be more likely to drop off a kindergarten age student than somebody in 7th or 8th grade.
well, and that's why Phillip Road actually becomes a benefit here, because it is as wide as, it's a 24-foot edge-to-edge roadway, which meets the village standards. So it's sufficiently wide for that. It's
You're talking
wide.
about the gray, you're defining the gray road that runs north and south as Phillip Road,
Correct.
okay, which is really a driveway.
Well, the driveway is typically one way. This is
Fine, wait,
24 foot wide.
Look, talk about this with honesty. A road is what sits out there that people drive on. At best, it's a private road. And it's
It has
really a
gates.
driveway with gates on it, right?
Well, we haven't determined the ownership of the road at this point.
Forget about ownership. If it's gated, how is it for public use? Like take Route 45. There's no gate out there, is there?
No.
Okay. If you gate it, how is it for public use?
Well, one of the things we're trying to do here, and one of the things we heard from your village engineer and village manager very strongly, was the attempt to get traffic off of Aspen and not put more traffic onto Aspen Drive than currently exists there.
So you've achieved that. Now you have to, what about the question from my left? How do you get this volume of traffic through that gray line?
This volume of traffic will stack up.
It's more in front of the facility than it is the gray line.
Ultimately, yes, you're right.
No, the Victory Center, is
Oh,
that
yeah,
what?
you're right, ultimately, yeah.
Right.
That's-
So this is where you're worried about right here, correct?
No, what I'm worried about is we had many discussions about Phillip Road when Victory Center was built, when McAllister's came before us, that it was my belief at the time the village never had any intent of extending Phillip Road to connect to Aspen. And that's exactly what this is doing. And this is, you have a facility that serves an elderly community. We've had people in here when McAllister's was being built, concerned about wheelchairs crossing from the facility to the parking lot, and now we're going to put 400 cars and buses? There's no doubt you need this. Please don't take this the wrong way. Wow.
But it really won't be 400.
You have to speak from the microphone, I'm
Yeah.
sorry.
It won't be 400 cars coming through there. We can have up to 400 students in there. We'll be providing bus transportation for the students. The board is still yet to determine a start time because it could impact start times for all our buildings. And bus transportation, there's consideration to provide transportation for all kindergartners, no matter how close. We have a 1.5 mile radius right now that we don't provide, but there's discussions on will we providing that because they are younger, and so it would promote more folks to ride the bus if we're coming through. Because in a 1 mile radius, your kindergartners aren't going to walk to school where seventh grade might. So
What's to prevent cut-through from the other schools on Aspen to get onto Phillips to move over to east without going on 60? Because we all know how 60 is in the morning. And I'm not trying to be argumentative. It's just that we may not have 400 kindergarten cars on this road. You're going to have a whole, and if it's going to be potentially used by the Sullivan Center, are the gates going to be closed when school starts and then opened when school is out? I mean, these are things that will come when this comes before us to actually approve, especially because there's a special use permit at play here.
Right.
And the question becomes, is it injurious to the surrounding area?
Right.
And again, I don't mean to speak for, but just from my perspective, that's a big deal.
and on the gate from the Phillips Road to the access and then to the Sullivan, those would be controlled by my staff for when school starts and be closed in the school.
And I have to ask a question that our chairman normally asks. Why this site? He tends to ask that a lot.
Why this?
Why
particular
this site? I mean, there's village-owned property to the south of Sullivan Center. Why this space?
This space made.
Oh, the Park District? Oh, well, if the Park District's, oh, never mind.
So the piece of land south of the pool,
Right.
before you hit the Deer Path neighborhood, that is,
Right.
who owns that?
Park
Park District.
Park District.
Right.
Isn't this Park District too? Okay.
All right, what
This is
about
Lot 2 is this, yeah.
the impact on Deer Path Drive? Because right now, being a Deer Path resident, I can say that I avoid Aspen at all costs during pickup and drop-off, because it is impassable, period. If I have to take Aspen, it's an additional 15 to 20 minutes just to get out of Deer Path. With all of this extra traffic going on to Deer Path Drive, what's the impact? Are Deer Path residents not going to be able to get out of Deer Path to the north? That's what it appears like that's what it appears.
Yeah, I don't have an answer for that right now. Obviously, there'll be increased traffic going on Deer Path as opposed to Aspen, trying to reduce some of that. But it's fewer cars, and at this point, I don't know if they'll be turning left to go out onto 60 and go, or if they'll be turning right to go through Deer Path.
But either way, it's going to impact Deer Path
Right,
residents
right.
exiting on Deer Path.
Potentially,
Okay.
I don't know how negatively that would be.
Now, right now, there are increased cars on Deer Path during your pickup and drop-off. So, I mean, that already affects it. And you're not reducing the traffic on Aspen, you're just not adding to it. So you can't say you're reducing the traffic, because reducing the traffic would affect the other schools. This is just not adding the kindergarten traffic to the mix.
The kindergarten students that currently, if you look at the enrollment of kindergartners that are in, parents that are going or dropping off their kids now wouldn't be on Aspen going to those buildings. They'd be going the other direction. So,
But how many of those parents also have kids in the middle school and/or elementary south
Yeah.
or Aspen?
many do, but I don't have a number.
And so how are they going to manipulate going to both schools, even if it's a 10 or 15-minute differential? How are they going to manipulate going from one side to the other side?
I don't know. I don't know how many of them had. Many of ours have both, but I don't know how many of them with kindergartners drop off a kindergartner and drop off their student. If they're going to, many of them might be riding buses. If it's a kindergarten or middle school, I just don't know at that point. I don't have that number for you right now, but we'll try to see if we can find out.
Okay.
The EastWest Drive that you're planned for the buses, Is that only for buses?
The drive is going to be signed bus traffic only. The only people that would access this other than bus traffic would be the service vehicles that need to come down here, trash or whatever. So from this point back to Aspen, it's actually going to function as a two-way drive. When you start getting past this gate and going to the east, where we have the control, then it would be a one-way for buses to head to the east.
Teachers would not, staff wouldn't be driving down there,
Well,
and parents
I'm
would not.
wondering if parents would
Right,
be
no.
trying to come in that way. And there's a gate, you said, between the Sullivan Center and parking lot and the roadway there.
So
Is there any other gate? Is that the only gate?
there's a gate right here that would block Sullivan traffic, keep anybody from going south or north unless open. There's also a gate here. That gate is primarily to keep cut-throughs from occurring. And then there is a third gate up here at this end
Oh,
also
there will
to.
be a gate up there.
Yes, so also to eliminate cut-through.
What's interesting too is, remember, even if only 100 parents drop off, that puts 400 cars in front of the Victory Center. One's coming in, going out, pickup coming in, pickup going out. 4 times the car will go in front of Victory Center. So if that's only if 100 parents drop off.
Could you go over real quickly again where staff parks and where parents park? Like, I'm just worried, like, if there's an evening kindergarten choir concert or something like that for the kids, all the staff's going to be there and all the parents are going to come. So where do all these cars go?
During, staff parking is, I think there's 45 parking spaces that are allocated down here for staff. So staff would park down here, they would walk up to access the building.
So
There's
you're
al-
sharing parking with the Sullivan Center?
Correct.
So then the school's gonna have to coordinate, like, if there's evening basketball games at the Sullivan Center and things like that, so the school's not gonna have to coordinate with
Right.
making
And
sure there's no dual functions?
This gray area here is expected to be a shared parking expansion with the library.
Okay.
Because they need additional parking for their addition. And that this is where our staff would park during the day, and then some might be parking down here in Sullivan. We have an arrangement with the Park District for some parking, but we would coordinate, if we had an evening event or something, we would coordinate to try to avoid. We have a big art fair that's at the library. We wouldn't have a kindergarten function at that same night because it's always very, very popular and crowded at that point. But we would just try to coordinate the best we could for those functions and times.
According to our staff report, there's a projected 70 employees, not all of them time necessarily expecting them teachers. This, you need 70 parking for staff. And the parking requirement for this is 76. You don't know this about me, but I'll come clean. I'm the former president of the school board next door. And I know that parent involvement is pretty much inversely proportional to the age of the student. I gotta believe you're gonna have more than 6 parents involved, and you certainly want more than 6. Where are you gonna put everybody?
Well, and on the 70, it's a big portion of that's rotation.
I understand, but
itinerant.
But you gotta
Right.
have provisions for them.
Right.
Are you gonna park them on this road, the parents?
On the big long road, the
Yeah.
access road? No, they do have some stalls right here if for some reason there was a need, but no, we would be utilizing some shared spaces over here and then some shared spaces in this area.
Yeah, but the shared spaces it only gets you to 45 plus, some other number. So even if you get to the 76 number, my concern is what are you gonna do during the day? The evening stuff I know is always worked out because
Right.
people park kind of wherever they can park. And I get that, and I understand the coordination. But I guess I'm more concerned about during the day. If you're gonna use 70 spaces on and off for staff, and then you're gonna have parents and other vendors that come and visit, where are they gonna go? Because certainly you want more than 6 parents involved.
Oh, definitely. Now, I'll go back and reevaluate that. I just know that the estimate of 70 staff isn't 70 all there at one time. And
Okay.
running in. So let me see if I can do a little calculation to show how many staff we'd anticipate in the building at any one time. That would show how many.
You have available then for
Right,
parents and
right,
the like, right?
Yeah, yeah.
And to actually add on to that, when you have something like, the Halloween parties, every classroom is gonna have a minimum of 4 parents there. Okay, minimum. You have conferences. Every parent, every kid has at least 1 car there. Many of them have 2 cars. Where are you gonna put them? That's,
Well, let me ask you this. We know that at Sullivan Center, there's what, I've lost the number now, 306 spaces. Because I work downtown, I'm not generally at the Sullivan Center during the day. So I don't really know how many of those are really used. And I'm not suggesting, but, are 306 used every day?
No, and that, I was going to comment on it, that
Yeah.
the Sullivan Center parking is very large.
Yes.
And during the day, we do not get the use that we get in the afternoons and evenings after school and then for
Sure,
the evening
sure.
programs. So there is a lot of parking available. Now, they will have to walk. It's not going to be right next to the building.
Right.
But if you were to go there during the day, that lot, maybe you'd be lucky if it were half full in front of the building and the entire pool side would all be empty.
Yeah,
It's
Yeah.
just going to involve people who are going to have to, they'll have to hoof it a little.
yeah. Now, of course, I'm going to infuriate now people, and I'll tell you why in a second. Clearly, you want your staff to be proximate, but you also want the parents to have good. My wife is a former elementary teacher, would say she'd rather park next to the building too, if she goes every day. So though that is kind of a long walk, but you probably have enough for the daytime, I'm assuming the Park District will agree, to allow you the extra usage with some sort of time restraint or the like, but we don't control that. And then you have to figure out the proximity. There is still the issue with respect to, evening events. What happens in the periodic big events during the day, like, parties and the like, and things like that. So I mean, from my standpoint, that's a big question for just workability of the site. This whole roadway driveway thing, I don't know how, you said it was 24 feet wide?
Yes.
Okay, so you really can't park on it.
No,
It's really not going to be usable, then you would block traffic. Certainly you'd block two-way traffic. So you really can't park on it. I don't know if during the day, you don't have buses come during the middle of the day, other than if you have a field trip or something.
Right.
So, I mean, I don't know whether can you park there during the day? Is that a usable space? I don't know.
I mean, we want to control it for bus, so we don't promote people driving through, but if we had, today's the,
Yeah.
Halloween or something, between these hours, we know buses aren't coming in there, we have a staff member out there open the gate and make sure
If they
folks
get
park.
them out or throw them, you don't want to do that either, so.
Right. Yeah. So there's potential there for those
Okay.
things.
so is the kindergarten then only full day? Because I know when my kids were there, it was only half day.
Yeah, we provide full-day kindergarten for everybody for free now. There's no tuition based. And I've only in the last 3 years had one person want to do half. Right. Yeah, I'm sorry, I should include that. It was a decision the board made 3 years ago, and they were pretty proud of that, to offer that.
I think it's a good decision, but as a mom.
Yeah. And we appreciate all the questions. I think you were saying you're not trying, by no means are we taking it that way. This helps me know how to clarify, and I'm hesitant to give you an off-the-cuff answer with numbers. I want to go back and then verify some numbers that we have to run through and make sure that you have those for you.
He did he brought up a question before of why this particular site, and then he pointed out that the Park District also owns facility land to the south. Is there a reason you chose this versus that site?
Yeah, it was in partnership with the Park District, and the Park District was adding a new gym, and they've located in a location in which we could add to the Sullivan Center and utilize the gym during the day. The gym, I think, is roughly about a $2 million structure. That's $2 million our taxpayers don't have to pay for a gym on a kindergarten building. If you were to go down to the 11 acres that's across from Elementary South and purchase that and then build it, the land's probably $2 million or more, a gym's another $2 million, and you have all parking we're able to share parking with the library and the Sullivan Center. So it adds to the cost, the total cost of the building. So this is an economical use of money, space, location. It promotes a traffic pattern out, even though it could present a problem, but it gets it out of the end of Aspen Drive. That would really present a problem where cars would be backing up into a neighborhood. This gets us there and we can access out. You don't have on the 11 acres a way to access back out onto Deer Path or somewhere of that sort. So those were the major points of looking at that. Originally there was a conversation of just using the Sullivan Center parking. In the morning it wouldn't be an issue, having parents drop off and the buses drop off and coordinate. In the afternoon it would be a little tougher because the Sullivan Center is being used, and we had talked about using the aquatic center parking to stage, but using the access road and the bus parking and partnership with the library to add parking really alleviated that whole potential congestion, and everybody would have had to come off of Aspen Drive and back out on Aspen Drive doing that. So that's how that site came about, as suggested. I hope that answers that for you.
And is it a hallway connection between your proposed building and the Sullivan Center?
Yeah, and actually, I'll let Jason, our architect, but it is a secured entrance, so people that come to the kindergarten building can't access the Sullivan Center and vice versa, but staff would have access as needed at a particular time. So if the Sullivan Center needed to, they're very kind and courteous to let us use the gym, and then sort of reciprocal is that we would be allowing them to use our large group instruction. You'll see an area there in the evening. Our large group instruction area would become available for the park district to use for some things of that sort. Not really access to the classrooms during the school year, because teachers don't want their classrooms used by other folks if at all possible, but we'd be making that large group of space available for them so they could expand possible programs. Jason Myring is an architect. He'll show you some of the drawings.
All right. Good evening, everybody. We're going to add a little bit more dimension to this yellow blob on the screen. That's hopefully going to be our new kindergarten center. As Nick said, my name is Jason Myring. I'm the project architect. I work for DLR Group in Chicago. We're the we're the architectural group that also helped the school district kind of develop their facility master plan. And we're fortunate enough to continue on with them to work on the kindergarten center. What's on the screen right now is the first floor plan of the kindergarten center.
One sec. You can sit down. You don't have to stand. It's not impolite. Everybody. You don't have to, but if you'd like to, no.
Just to give a little definition of the plan, in blue right in the front here is the multipurpose room that Nick was talking about. That's connected right here via a link to the newer Sullivan Center gym that has recently been added. Next to that, east of that, is the administration wing of the building. It is also an ICC 500 rated tornado shelter. So the current school code requires that all new schools built in Illinois have a storm shelter that can house all of the students and staff in the event of tornado. So as soon as the sirens go off, all the students and staff can go into this area of the building. All the windows have shutters. All the doors are tornado rated, so that in the event of emergency, everybody's secure inside the building. North of that are the first floor, the first two petals that Nick was talking about. Each of the petals has 4 classrooms around the outside and then a makerspace toward the center. And then those 2 petals are mirrored on the first floor, and if we go up to the second floor, they are also repeated on the second floor. So in total, the building is for, as Nick mentioned, about 450 students at max capacity, and staff to support those students. In the center of the building, we had talked about there are also community spaces, school community spaces. So there's an art studio on the first floor, and there's an active play space on the second floor. So the kids will have more areas to stretch out.
Before you go on, where's the front door?
The front door is right here. So tucked in between the existing gym of the Sullivan Center and the administration wing, there's a canopy that reaches out towards that loop driveway that you saw in the previous plan.
So if parents are parking or staff is parking by the library in that lot, they have to walk all the way around the building to here to get in?
Yes.
While you're on this slide, it says you have a kitchenette.
There we go.
Yes.
So are you going to have a food service company for lunches, or how is that going to work?
The school district has a food service provider that they work with for the entire school district. So that food service provider will be bringing pre-prepared food to the kitchenette, and then from there they will distribute to the students.
So it'll just be like a heating
it's
kitchen
a
or a
warming
warming kitchen?
Yep.
Okay, and then I'm assuming that the multi-purpose room will be the lunchroom at that point?
Yeah.
Okay.
That space's primary function. We call it our large motor space, so it has furniture that will be flexible, so they can collapse up the furniture, move it away, and they'll have music classes in that space also, and it'll be acoustically tuned, and it'll be about the size, so if they wanted to have, if the school community or the Sullivan Center users wanted to use a space for a presentation, a play, a performance of some kind, the space would work great for that as well.
So when the buses drop off in the morning,
Yep.
how do the kids get in the school?
Let's go back a little bit. So there's a walk. The buses are dropping off along this side. There's a walk that goes down the east side of the building and into the canopy of the front door.
Okay.
What's a maker room?
A maker room is it's kind of a new concept that's really been catching on, picking up speed in a lot of schools. A lot of times we'll call it a STEM space or a STEAM space. STEM stands for science, technology, engineering, and math. So it's a space where we've kind of merged a lot of disciplines into one space. So the maker space will have a lot of things that you may not see in a traditional classroom. They'll have spaces for building projects, making things that you may not traditionally make inside of a classroom, inside of a traditional curriculum. Build robots? Yeah, absolutely.
Do you know the length of the walk from the front door all the way to where the kids would be dropped off? Like, if you estimate how many yards that is?
This walk from the front door to this part of the driveway is about 65 feet. So
Okay.
to this part of the bus drop-off, we're probably about 165 feet.
And then all the way to the end, because the bus stops all the way to the end, so those kids have to walk too.
Right.
So
Probably over
200 plus yards
Yep.
in the dead of winter?
So in the morning drop-off is phased. So it's like the buses aren't all showing up at the exact same time. So they're not all dropping off at the far end of the driveway. In the morning, they're kind of dropping off in stages toward, obviously, the east end of the driveway as possible.
At night, when they all leave and the buses are lined up, they will have to go out and obviously they'll know where their bus is, but.
They're not necessarily all the students are leaving from the front door. Obviously, pickup is going to be coordinated from the front door, but we have multiple exits outside of the building. So there are exits at both east and west end of the building from the pedals, and stairs down from the east and west end of the pedals. So depending on where students are going, and depending on how the school district coordinates release at the end of the day, they have a shorter distance to get to the buses.
With kindergarten students, do you have a more controlled release? I mean, because they're small kids. It's not like grade school or high school where they can just wander out and they know where they're going.
Yeah, actually, we do, and all the teachers go with them. We have staff out there for drop-off and pickup, but it is more controlled. We walk around, we don't just open there and go, you know? So, yeah, it is controlled, it is guided. Also, that if you've been anywhere near the Town Line building, where the buses drop off for Town Line to where they walk is a fairly long walk as well.
If you look at your schematic here, and you look at the classroom in the upper right corner, that's kind of between numbers 8 and 9. You can see it up there?
Here?
Other side?
Upper right.
The other right, that right. How do you get from the front door of that classroom? The hall doesn't connect.
The hall is connected through a series of, there are interconnected spaces through the building. So there are small group pull-out spaces adjacent to classrooms. So the classrooms are also flexible. So where you see this area of the wall, that's actually an operable wall. Same thing here, and up here.
So pretend like you're a kindergartner. Walk from the entry where you're going to enter this building. How do you get to your classroom?
So from the entry, I walk through the main entry here, up into the multipurpose room where everybody's going to meet in the morning, and then into my makerspace, into my pedal, and then from there to the back classroom is down between these classrooms and in this way.
Okay.
So we had a great team of teachers, and great team from the administration side too that helped us for many, many weeks to try and develop this plan and think about how those kindergartners are going to be working and interacting in this building and interacting not just with the 25 of them that are going to be in each classroom, but how they're going to interact with the teachers and students that are in their particular petal, and how those 4 classrooms, 100 students will all work together. This is a little bit hard to read. Hopefully you guys can see it a little bit better on your plans or on the drawings that were provided. This is the roof plan of the Sullivan Center, or of the kindergarten addition. Once we get into some more 3D views, we'll be able to see it a bit better. We have a butterfly roof that covers the multi-purpose space and the administration space, and a flat roof over the petal area. And then on top of the flat roof are the rooftop mechanical units that serve that space. This is the north and south elevation. So the south elevation, for the most part, faces the existing Sullivan Center. And what we're going to be enclosing as a new playground. So here is just kind of a section of through where the link is going to be connected to the existing Sullivan Center. These large glass openings look into the multi-purpose room, and then on the west side of that courtyard, between the existing Sullivan Center and the new kindergarten, there's a fence to kind of keep that new playground area secure for the kindergartners. The north elevation is primarily classrooms are facing that north elevation, so we're trying to get as much glass and daylight in that north elevation as possible. There's also the elevation that faces out towards the existing library and towards Town Line Road. So anyone coming down Aspen, this is going to be a very big presence along Aspen Drive when you're first approaching the building. The east elevation, this is the elevation facing the parent drop-off. So main entry is here with the canopy extending out toward that parent drop-off. And west elevation facing Aspen Drive. So identity of the building at a couple places, identity along Aspen Drive to kind of make it part of that South Campus community with all the rest of the school district's buildings on that side of the campus. And then also identity, just backed up one slide, identity at the main entry here. So along that parent drop-off loop, there's a main building identity there also. This is, the paving obviously is a little bit different than what we have in these 3D views, but this is the view from that parent drop-off looking back toward the main entry, the existing Sullivan Center Sullivan Center gym to the left, and the canopy and main entry in the center of the image. This is back a little bit, looking at the administration and multipurpose room in the background, and then the classroom petals in the foreground. Materiality of the building is working with the Sullivan Center materials quite a bit, so we're pulling in a lot of the split-face masonry and brick that is used on the existing Sullivan Center, pulling those materials through into the petals, and then looking at making them a bit more playful, kind of accentuate that this is a new kindergarten center, so trying to use those materials and dissolve them a little bit into something new and interesting. The large block that forms the admin and multipurpose room is actually a precast concrete material that we're looking at. Again, trying to get a texture and richness that is very reminiscent of the materials used on the Sullivan Center. Here's another view of that north elevation. So again, coming down from the library parking lot, looking from the library toward the new kindergarten center, or coming down Aspen Drive. This is kind of that first corner view. And then this is that west staircase that faces Aspen Drive. I think that's, you guys have more questions?
Some of the renderings don't really reflect the land plan and the site circulation and the bus drop-off and the drop-off up front, particularly the east view.
No, they
They're
don't.
showing like a forest, and that's really not. It's a driveway and
Right.
Victory Center parking lot and the parking garage. So if you were to, come back, I would hope that you would update those just so we have a better view of what it really is.
Yeah, absolutely.
Okay.
Who's Bloom?
Well, actually, there's Bloom's taxonomy, which is a whole hierarchical of knowledge, but it's actually Bloom because it started off with the idea of a petal design with flowers when we were brainstorming with our administrators and teachers that were helping design this. And they actually came up with an idea that looked like, we had foam blocks, and it came out and looked like a flower. And so it went to Bloom to petals, and we just, it's not the official name, it's just a working.
I didn't know if it was a person, you
No,
know, a lot
but
of times you
that's
name
a
schools after
very good
people.
question. I don't know if the link is still available, but when we made a presentation to the school board, we had those goggles you could put your phone in and put it on, and then you can look around, and it gives you an idea to move inside and see the interior and what it would look like. I still have some of those. I'll be more than happy to send them over to the village. We could find out the link. I'll forward the link to Joe Carey, and then if you pick those up and you put your phone and just follow the directions, you'll actually get a chance to see what it would look like inside the building and bring that alive for you a little bit, if that helps you just to get a concept of what the interior would look like.
I think the building looks great.
Thank you.
I mean, and I like the way it's laid out inside.
It's
I
got a
like
lot
that
of
very
good
much.
pieces. The team's done a nice job. And it was, as Jason mentioned, that was designed by teachers, kindergarten teachers, and administrators. And if you look at it, there's not a lot of hall space in there for a reason, because hall space is dead space for the most part. We've tried to capture the space and use it for potential for instructional places.
Does that add added security too? I mean, okay.
Yeah.
And when you look at it, that's one of the things I thought of too. It gives you the opportunity to,
Secure
Two,
things.
yeah.
Yeah. So there are some, it's all a very definite design purpose through everything. For that. You did ask makerspace, and so here, just take a second. That makerspace, what's nice for kindergarten teachers, it's a big space, but it allows them to put up projects or build projects and leave them. It allows them to have wet, if they want water or paint, and leave it there for the students to come back and use later. It's very difficult for them to create something in the classroom, have to take it down for some other activity later. So you think of your Hot Wheels cars, if we're doing something, we want to teach them some science with gravity, and we can leave those up, and it saves the teacher take down, put up, and then the kids, it can be used by multiple people. So just as an example, why that's important.
You know, as long as you're up, I thought of another question about, you know, the parking. What about snow storage? Like when it snows, you're gonna lose more spaces.
Right.
I just
Where actually
kinda
would we
wanted-
put the snow? Yeah, I can talk to my maintenance folks and with the park district to see what the recommendations are on how that would be pushed out of the way, and try to do the best we can.
Yeah, I just wanted to bring it up.
I'll ask. That's a good question. I appreciate that.
Okay, anybody else? Anything else on yours? You anything else?
That's all we have for tonight.
I was just kind of putting notes together, and so this is a, you know, concept presentation. The intention is for them to appear before a public hearing, likely end of March or early April. We're still working through the timing of that, obviously with spring break and whatnot, but a couple of things I heard, I think most importantly is they need to make sure they address traffic and address kind of, and I know they've been working with the traffic person, so make sure that that individual's present to be able to help answer those questions.
and I'm sure that didn't come as a surprise to any
No.
of you.
It's been
That's the elephant in the room.
Yeah, we've been really working on trying to dial that in, so.
Was a traffic study done?
I don't know if a traffic study was specifically done, as relates to a traffic study was done on Aspen, as part of potential road improvements to Aspen and Town Line for a designated right turn lane creation, but as it relates to specifically the kindergarten center, I know you indicated you had a traffic person, but I don't know if they did a specific study, or did they?
I don't think it's been updated since the last study that was done, which recommended some of the improvements, like you said, at Aspen and 60, also Aspen and the new drive. We have had conversations during this whole process about this new bus intersection potentially becoming a signalized intersection at some point way down in the future. So we're trying to make sure that the geometry on our side of the street can hopefully accommodate that.
I think one of the topics is going to be the traffic on Phillips Road. And meaning, when we talk about a traffic study, obviously, as I mentioned earlier, if you're going to drop your child off, you're going to go in front of the Victory Center 4 times.
Right.
So a realistic study of what we think is going to be drop-off for children that age, and to address the question he brought up is, how do you get from the schools on Aspen, if you're really, you could drive into the Sullivan Center and drop your kid off. It'd be a shorter walk. I mean, you see what I mean, right? So
Right.
you could plan on that.
What happens right now is that when Aspen's backed up in the morning, parents will, and I've done this too, I'll drop my son off at the Sullivan Center because he can cross the street immediately because there's a teacher out there as a crossing guard, and then I can just turn around and go south on Aspen and avoid the line from that point up to the drive. So I'm sure you're going to have the same situation, you know, for kids dropping they're going to pull right into Sullivan Center. The parents are not going to, if they have a child at South or Aspen or Middle South and a kindergartner, they're not going to go all the way around. They're going to find the path of least resistance, which is going to be the Sullivan Center parking lot.
And we don't know the impact. You know, right now, we have a partnership with the Park District for before and after school care, and we don't know the impact of this piece for this either, where people might opt in more and think, oh, I can drop my kids off and have them there, and then immediately have access, you know, pretty close proximity with the buildings being right next to each other. So I don't know how that is, but we can see if we can get some estimates from folks and stuff like that.
So I think another,
I guess to finish, so it's traffic, it's the site circulation, it's the question of parking, are all things. There's some issues with regard to, you know, people circulation because of where you are and how you get into the building, whether that works, or some of the things. The question overall is, when we talk about site circulation, we're talking about how that traffic impacts going out to the public roads as well. Because Phillips in front of Victory Center is a public road, clearly Aspen is, and clearly Deer Path is. You know, so how that affects as well.
Is the parcel that feels like a parking lot in front of Victory Center, is that actually considered a road?
yes,
Even though it narrows?
Yep.
yes.
Okay.
Has there been,
No, go ahead. So the village takes care of that?
Yes.
Okay.
And would they take care of this extension?
We're under discussions of how that would be maintained.
has there been any discussion with Victory Center about potentially this design?
Yes, so we've had a meeting with the property manager, with the individual who works, manages the Victory Center, just last week Friday. The Park District was there as well as the school district. And we will be having several meetings with their community groups, I guess I'll just call it, like their councils, and to update them informally as well, to get their feedback. But we certainly are engaging them in the conversation as well.
Because obviously their opinion on this will mean a lot, as will the impact possibly on the Deer Path area.
The main thing the manager brought up, and I'm sorry I don't know her name, exact title, but was how the crossing for the seniors will be going to the library. So the current thought is that the sidewalk connection would be a raised sidewalk at distinction and help provide some sort of traffic calming to that. But that's just one particular idea. We haven't, fully gone through that at this time. But that's something that we are taking into consideration, as well as understanding that this will be a significant change for the senior residents. Certainly very familiar with the dialogue we had when McAllister's came in, and recognize that this could be more of a change than that was. So we've had a conversation with the school about different programming that might be able to do to kind of incorporate the seniors with the kindergarten center to help create some synergies that might also create some connections there, and how else we can utilize this to the benefit of the overall area.
And we did talk about some intergenerational programming. The location is wonderful for that piece.
I agree.
And we've already started, I've started talking with my curriculum director on, we have standards in our art program, but are there some things that we can do when the Victory Center, even if the building doesn't get built, but is there something we can do for the Victory Center if they have functions and they need placemats or artwork? There's nothing like kids' artwork, especially little kids' artwork, to just brighten up a room. So we're connecting with them on that. But when we have music programs, things of that sort at the kindergarten center. Maybe having the kindergartners go over and rehearse in front of them. But we also talked about our programming, our music programming at Hawthorne is just second to none. And many times we could maybe even connect. It's something we've missed, and maybe we should connect and allow our quartets and things like that possibly, or invite Victory Center parents over. So we're no matter what happens, we're going to try to strengthen that. We just think that's just a good thing to do.
So when this comes back, who's the applicant?
So
The Park District?
the applicant is District 73. We're getting a letter from the property owner authorizing them to apply on their behalf.
And the Park District is going to retain ownership for this 20-year period with a lease back to the school district with an option at the conclusion of that to purchase it for this, whatever this nominal amount is.
Yes.
That's the way it works?
Yes.
And so therefore, the construction costs of this are not Park District construction costs. These are construction costs that are being funded by the school district?
Correct.
For its use? Okay. Okay. Anybody else?
At the parking lot expansion that's up by the library, who's paying for that?
That will be the library.
The library,
Library thing?
yeah, we're in the, they
That's
need
part
some-
of the library's expansion.
Right, anybody else?
Real quick, you know, if you do look at that, the drop-off sequence and how many number of cars and parents, with kindergarten parents, you know, a lot of those kids maybe in car seats. Maybe the parent has to park, open their own door, walk around the side of the car, take their kid out. So it's probably not as fast as a process as like at the grade schools or the middle schools. It might be even a longer delay. So you might get more backup of cars.
we actually, we have that at all our elementaries right now. And so we have sort of door-to-curb service. We have staff out there to
Okay.
open the doors and help with that. You're correct, because it's all kindergartners, so there's potential there, but we do that pretty quickly and pretty seamlessly right now, and it works well. Because we really don't want parents to get out of their cars if they can help to, if at all possible. If they need to and they need to come in, we then have them park and then come in from there. But we do try to provide that door-to-curb service there.
We did hear you pretty clearly as far as the concern about the traffic and particularly in front of the Victory Center. So we'll expand our traffic analysis out to Deer Path to see the impact. I mean, I know 100 cars sounds like a lot, and it is, you know, in front of the Victory Center, but as far as distributing that amount of cars out into the roadway network, it's probably not as much of an impact as everybody fears that it's going to be here. And we're talking about over a 20-minute period, it's 5 cars per minute, or 5 cars per minute that would be let back out on the roadway system. So by the time you disperse them out, it's not as dramatic as I think we're thinking it's going to be. But we'll run those numbers out and show you what the capacity analysis shows on that.
And you probably already, I think you already said this, but I just wanted to clarify. This facility will be a consolidated facility for the entire district, is that correct?
Yes, this is all kindergartners, except for the projected 75 that go to the School of Dual Language. So, but otherwise, all other kindergartners will attend this facility.
Okay, anybody else? Nothing?
We do really thank you for your time to meet tonight and review and your thoughtful questions, and we'll get you some answers. And if anything else comes up, we'll let us know, and we'll do what we can to make sure we answer
Okay,
those for you.
thank you.
Thank you very much.
Yeah, please let me know if additional questions or things come up. So we don't have a date scheduled, so now is a really good opportunity that if something, you know, pops in your head later, and we can definitely forward those along and make sure we can get those addressed.
All right, I guess we have,
Anonymity is that, but some towns not incorporated where the construction manager, so I was just here more for support if anyone came up construction wise.
thank you,
Thanks a lot.
thanks.
Thank you very much.
All right, I guess we have approval of minutes?
Sure, I'll just do
Or
this.
discussion, I'm sorry.
No, that's all right. Just real quickly discussion. As I said, we are going to do meetings with the Victory Center shortly. My guess is those will be interesting. So those will be fun. if some members of the commission would like to attend, let me know. We can see if we can work that out on a 2-on-2 basis, to avoid any open meeting violations. But, otherwise, the library, we do expect for them to submit for technical review probably by the middle of March. As I said, their construction schedule is pretty consistent with what they're looking to do for their construction schedule, which we would prefer because, of course, with that parking that they're looking to expand on Lot 2, that will be a huge benefit for this potential proposal. Otherwise, speaking of McAllister's, the owner of that property would like to put a Dunkin' Donuts on the southern end of the property. He's looking at closing off the Phillip Road access at its current location and relocating the access to the easternmost point of their property to line it up with the roadway there. And that would potentially
Did we
create,
want to do that originally?
yeah, I think we did.
No, but I think it's, the site has proven to be very successful, so, you know, at the beginning, did he want to do that in the beginning, or he didn't want to do that? Well, I mean, I think McAllister's is doing good, you're gonna get Dunkin' Donuts, it's probably an opportunity that he can invest the money to do.
They're gonna put a drive-through in this road.
Oh.
Would
There
the,
already is the drive-through there.
would the current Dunkin' Donuts remain?
That's remains to be seen because the owner, so the owner of the properties, it does Dunkin' Donut franchises. Now, according to him, he's not going to be the one that manages this one. The franchisee who owns the two other Dunkin' Donuts within a stone's throw of each other, the one at the intersection of Milwaukee and Town Line, and the one further to the west on Town Line, are all owned by the same people. His feeling is that one of them would close, and it likely would be the one on Milwaukee and Town Line because that one doesn't have a drive-through.
Yeah, that's a,
It's also a tough spot.
Yeah,
yeah,
they're always busy.
So this would be a second drive-through at the location of McAllister's. The McAllister's drive-through is just for delivery only, which is really the only reason why we're really entertaining this. What we told the owner is if this ever becomes not just delivery, or pickup rather, it's gonna, we can only have one essentially is kind of what we're talking about because it creates, I think, a lot of conflicts. Otherwise, that's probably it for what's probably forthcoming. So, yeah.
Okay, all right. And we have the approval of the minutes of the January 31st Planning and Zoning meeting. We need a second. Any discussion? We'll do that by acclamation. All in favor?
Aye.
Anybody opposed? That one passes. And we have the approval of the minutes of the very lengthy and complex meeting of February 21st. We need a second for that. Okay. Any
Second.
discussion?
That's what we did.
We need that by acclamation.
Yes,
Aye.
Anybody opposed? Okay, the approval of minutes took longer than the meeting.
Yeah,
And
it did.
then we're back,
Next week.
are they coming back?
We're coming back.
Are they coming back?
They are coming back.
So just a question, they come back next week, it's it's an extension of the meeting.
Yes.
So therefore, everything that everyone said in the prior meeting is technically part of the meeting.
Yes, it's a continuation. of the
Meaning,
public
it's a
So they
continue,
don't
that's
have
what
to
I'm,
repeat
that's
it.
what I meant. They don't have to read yeah, they don't have to repeat it.
hearing. That would be at the decision of the chairperson.
But I think that's an excellent suggestion.
I'm aware that some who have already given speeches have said they've prepared more speeches. And so I think it's at the discretion of the chair as to how that will be entertained.
I fully support people speaking. Yeah, but if they're gonna say the same thing,
We don't
I
even,
mean,
we've
yeah,
heard it several
because
times.
it is one long meeting.
Yeah. So,
And there have been several repeats of
yes.
points that have already been documented in the minutes.
Yeah.
That would be,
Right.
but yes, I would,
And that's why technically, from a technical perspective, it literally is the same meeting. So it's like getting up
Yeah, it's
twice in the same
Yeah,
meeting and
yeah, it's a
talking.
continuation of the,
Yeah.
of the public hearing.
I'll let the lawyer.
Yeah, but yeah, it is, correct.
Okay.
Sure. Okay. Anything else we have this evening?
No.
All right, then we have a motion to adjourn. We need a second. You want to discuss that? Hearing no discussion, Fry. All in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? Okay, we're adjourned. Good night.